Hi, I'm Suzanne. I am a writer, a podcaster, an author, and I am going to be kind of an interviewer tonight here on All the Woo A to Z.
And I'm Mychal. I'm a sommelier, tarot card reader, a former ballerina, and now hypnosis. I don't know. What is it? Client, person. I'm not putting people under this. Sorry, we need to clarify all of this. And we will, we promise.
But before that, we want to say, come sit at our kind of crazy, chaotic table. This is a non-judgmental space. We are just relating experiences we've had, things that we believe. There is no need for agreement. We just want you to hang out with us and hope that you're entertained.
Yeah.
So what deliciousness are we drinking tonight?
So tonight, we're going to, along with our Egyptian theme, there's a wine that's called Isis, of all things. So kind of spot on. And it's produced by Meridiana Wine Estate, and it's located in Malta. This particular wine is a Chardonnay.
And I will totally volunteer to go because I've always wanted to go to Malta.
I know. We actually just listened to a little clip of the language there.
And it's even more complicated. It sounds even more complicated than Portuguese and Arabic put together.
So if you really want a challenge, if you're somebody who enjoys learning languages, might be one to look into.
Be our translator.
Yes. Okay. So today we are talking about basically past lives that we are aware of in Egypt that we've become privy to. And both of us have kind of come to this awareness in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, one was through confirmation with my medium reading that I had, that you all were a part of that story that I shared in our first season, and where I got confirmation because I've had such a close connection. And then I've also had through hypnosis another lifetime that was shared with me in great detail. And then also just like general feelings of different personal experience of feeling that I have connections during certain lifetimes there. How about you, Suzanne?
Well, first of all, I just want to let the listener know that tonight, Mychal is going to tell us what it's like to be an Egyptian priestess.
Yes, I am.
If you want to know my version of what it's like to be an Egyptian priestess, I wrote about it.
Yes, she did. She did, in great detail.
I have only recently come to believe, this was in one of the previous season's episodes, believe that my ability to write historical fiction so well is and so vividly is not because necessarily I am a great researcher, which
you are, and you're also an excellent writer.
It can be yes and, right, there you go.
Yes.
But also because I have and I think maybe all writers do, because the more I hear people talk about kind of the planes that they go to meet with their guides or their spirits or whoever, and I'm kind of like, what you're describing is really just, what you do when you're writing. It will be very interesting to see kind of how those two paths come together. But yes, for me, ancient Egypt was just something I knew and I was obsessed with. So I did study and read everything, but I also just knew what it felt like and could really, really go there.
Yeah.
And is that an overactive imagination, or being able to check into an alternate version of myself, or any of the other 700, different definitions that are somewhat metaphysical and therefore woo. So they're on our podcast.
Yeah.
But for me, yes, being a priestess was a very key part of the culture. And so that is where I located my character who came from the future and stepped into someone else's body so that she could be able to know the language and the customs and all of that, but she doesn't have emotional memories. Anyway, that book is Reflections in the Nile by Suzanne Frank.
And it was the first book that I ever read of Suzanne's, and I read it really fast for me. I'm not as fast of a reader as Suzanne is, but that was could not put it down.
Yay. So, since my experience is already chronicled, let's hear about yours.
Okay. The lifetime that I'm going to focus on is the one that was brought up through hypnosis. And the reason why I want to focus on this one is because I have now my own visual memories of this, where even what I said in the hypnosis is not even my full experience of it. It's literally like as if it's your own memory that you're stepping back in time and remembering something and being able to look around and know how it felt to be there. So, and because there's just so much more detail to that, that's the one that I'm going to focus on. And so, as Suzanne said, I was a priestess. And the time frame that was given for this was 2100 BC. And it started out, and the way that they do this in hypnosis is that they're like, okay, well, taking you to this place, if you're looking for a certain time frame or something like that, or a certain lifetime in a particular area. And so it picked a lifetime that I had in Egypt, and they take you down like, okay, what's the first thing that you kind of remember? What do you see? And so my first... You kind of describe what you're wearing, and I was wearing what you would expect. I had a white dress that had a white belt. There wasn't a lot of frills to it. As a matter of fact, I think I was even at the time, because I was young when I first stepped into this, that I didn't even really have shoes at the time. And then I was running through the streets of Thebes, so Main Street area there, and I was basically already involved in working in the temple of Osiris in Thebes. And I give a description of the temple which I even looked up recently. I'm like, is this like lining up? And I'm like, did Osiris have a temple in Thebes? Yes, he did. And then also, what did it look like? And my description of it is that it had steps leading up into it, and the columns were square in the entrance area before you walked in. And for that temple there in that location, that's exactly how it's built. I was like, cool. All right. And so part of your upbringing into this is that there are like I say, I have to go get the water every morning and bring it to the temple, like all the stuff that's not fun as you would expect. Like that's the stuff that I had to do. And then it was all part of the learning process. Like I also had schooling and learning of what it is that I was supposed to do, but the regular activities of basically chores and whatnot were part of the learning process as well.
Yeah.
I give a little bit of a description even on how the temple works, that majority of people, when they come to the temple, they can only come into the front part of it, and that in the back part, only the priests were allowed in the back portion of it, or depending on what level you were, how far you could go back. And that also kind of describing that in the temple of Osiris, there was more priests than there were priestesses, which makes sense. And that the priests were definitely in charge of the financial portion of taking care of and real estate and all that kind of thing with the temple. And that's what they were focused on doing. But also that everything that they did was treated like a ritual. So even though it was like a mundane thing, like this is a ritual now that we're going to do this thing, there was a lot of intentionality given behind everything that you did. There was no just like, I have off time, so I'm just going to go do whatever. It's like, no, like everything had a purpose and an intentionality behind it. So then kind of going through, and then it jumps me over to a time when I'm a little bit older and what I'm kind of going through. And so then I'm at a space where it's my initiation as a priestess.
Okay.
So as an adult, I describe the area and I'm walking in. I go up a couple steps into a room, and this is all in a temple. It's at night, and there are little torches that are in that room. There's not a whole lot of people in this tiny room with me. There's a little stand in the middle that's like maybe goes up to your waist, torso area, meant as like an altar kind of thing that's there in the middle. It's really quite small. Actually, it's something that kind of looks like, having been to the temple that I'm going to tell you about here with my today lifetime experience, would be one of the tops to, there's a boat that's in that temple that it rests on. It would be like if you took one of those support beams, stand, and you put it in the room. Okay. So it was like that. I had a crown of flowers around my head, and I had this fancy like cape, like a robe that kind of came over my shoulders, and it was made out of gold. Like gold material woven in. I just thought how special it was. I even said in the thing, I feel very important and I feel very special. And also in this initiation, it felt more like a wedding or a marriage, that I'm being married to the god, and that this is what it is that I'm doing. So
Eros Gamos.
I took it as, that I could visually see the room in a real way. And personally, in this lifetime, when I went to go visit Egypt, I had the experience where at the Temple of Edfu, that in one of the rooms as I was walking around, and in that particular location, I had a lot of different experiences, but I went into one back room that's by the main room that holds the boat that I walked in. And the moment I walked in, I was like, I know this room. This is the room. Like this, like the same dimensions, all the things, same feel, the steps leading into the room, all the things. And so, yeah, that was like my first moment is like, I've walked here, exactly here before. I have memories of walking in this room. Also, yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, not dissimilar.
Yeah.
When I was at Karnak, so the story, my character goes back in time in a specific room in Karnak. And one of the reasons why I picked it is because it was a little bit not allowed to go in. And so, but a very specific lineup of how the light would fall through and on the few items that were in the room and that kind of thing. And when we went back, it was like that room is still, but like now it is nailed shut.
Yes.
I'm kind of like, they know that you can time travel out of this room.
They know it.
They know it. They're just keeping people because there's a whole lot of explaining to do now with passports. But yes.
So Suzanne, low-key, you and I need to go to Egypt together.
And just like
break in the guise of night.
And Karnak used to be just a completely different thing, but now it's completely surrounded by security and
at all times.
And dogs. They didn't have dogs when I was there the first time, which is how I kind of came to this idea of what you could do, because at that time you could have done it.
Yeah.
But if I had traveled to Egypt anytime after that, I would never have been able to come up with this idea because dogs.
When I left Karnak, sorry, we're getting way off here, but when I left Karnak, when I went to go visit, right before I left for my trip, my dog had passed away. And so as I was leaving and the sun was setting, I looked back at the temple and a whole pack of dogs came up on the ridge next to the temple and just sat and like was looking towards me, like more than just went, like a pack of them. They all came. They weren't barking, howling, anything, just sat and like looked my direction. And I was like, look, you guys. I started to like cry. I'm like, okay, thank you. Special moment.
Which is, since we had people shouting us that it was time to leave and the dogs were looking less embracing.
Yes.
Kind of like, they're going to let them loose on us.
They're like, we're doing you a favor by telling you to leave now, actually.
Yeah.
This is not us enforcing you. It's just for your own personal safety.
So, yes, back to your room.
Okay.
Just that, yeah.
So moving forward from the moon, the room, moon and room, because it was at night, I guess. It takes me to another important part of my life. And so we kind of go into the day in, day out of they ask like, what does a typical day look like for you? I was like, well, I wake up and the first thing that I do is that I pray and that I kneel in front of a wall that has it. It actually, if you were to look at it, looks more, and it felt even at the time, more like a hallway, a breeze through. But that is actually the spot where you'd go. You'd face one of the walls. I would sit on my legs and then I would pray. And the point, it was like prayer / meditation. And the whole point of it was for me to connect with the God and to ask for connection and to help me better communicate with them, but also to pray for others so that their voices are heard as well. And that ask for guidance for me as the day moves forward, that as people come to me with their issues, that I will know what to do in order to help alleviate or fix or whatever it is that they were coming for.
Just get your communication channel clear and open first thing.
Yeah. First thing before I do anything is go do that. Then I would go and I'd have breakfast and I would have
the perfuming of the mouth.
Yes. I had beer.
Amazing source of protein and nutrition for so many thousands of years.
Yes. Figs and bread. That was just the basis of my breakfast. And then I would go and sorry.
Oh, I was just about to say, the Egyptians were very regular.
Yes.
Especially since their bread was just so full of fiber that actually it would just wear out people's teeth. So that's one of the interesting things And mummies is just how nobody had teeth left.
They had
after
little
a certain age.
nubbins, little teeth nubbins. But then I would go out to the front of the temple to be available to help people. So my main job really was to be a healer.
Mm-hmm.
You could say I was an intuitive healer,
Mhm.
that I'd go out there, people would come with their issues. And to be clear, there was other temples that did deal with medicine in a very different, like very
Mhm.
3D kind of way. And that was at a different temple dealing with other gods.
Mm-hmm.
For me, even though when I was younger, I was working within a temple of Osiris, I'm pretty sure that I was a priestess of Isis.
Mm-hmm.
And that because they were married, that's
Mhm.
why I was
You
working.
can make the transition.
Yes, I could like be on either side that way. But my job in particular was because I had another connection with the spiritual side of healing, the magical side of healing. And that I remember like this defining difference between like basically Western versus Eastern medicine. It's
Mhm.
like the difference between the two. And it was very similar. So I dealt more maybe the Eastern side of medicine for
Mhm.
the temple. So I would do some real physical things, but at the same time, I'd also do energy work. I'd work a lot with herbs. As a matter of fact, I even say that a lot of it is working with herbs.
Mm-hmm.
So then from there brings me to another important date. I
Mhm.
was taken, not like kidnapped.
One can never know with you.
I was requested by the pharaoh because one of his ladies was
Mhm.
having some real health problems and that
Mhm.
she was not doing well. I think that they had some other priests who dealt
Mhm.
with other kinds of medicine come and try to help, and they were not seeing any kind of success.
Mhm.
So for some reason or another, I was asked to come
Mhm.
to kind of assess the situation, more to kind of find out from a spiritual level if there was anything else left to be able to be done.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the answer was no. I was really scared of giving that answer, but I was like, no, you guys have done it. There's nothing left to be done.
Mhm.
I'm
It's her
sorry.
time.
It's her time.
Osiris is counting on her showing up.
Yes, she has a date, very
Mhm.
important date. So, and then from there, it took me to the last day of my life.
Oh, wow.
So, the last day of my life, which I also have a personal experience in Egypt for modern day, is that I had.
She did not die in Egypt this time, just so y'all are.
I'm still here.
Yeah. This is not a ghost.
This is not a ghost. So I was working in the temple, and it says that my age was, I was 60 years old. It actually says, but I look a lot older than I am. Life had had my wear and tear.
All of that bread had just.
Worked its way out. But I had a feeling that it was my time, that I kind of knew. And so I went outside of the temple and I went to the back area where there's not a lot of people, next to
By
the
the
Nile.
Sacred Lake? Or where you are?
By the Nile.
Okay.
And I sat down by the edge, and the sun was setting, and it was very poetic that way, that basically I was just like, okay.
Gonna ride with Ra this time.
This is the time, and it's my time to go, and basically just went out there and sat by myself, and that's how I passed away in its own, soft, easy, like I guess better than, a very tragic way, right?
Yeah,
It could be
absolutely.
any number of ways. But what I thought was really interesting about it is that my now lifetime in visiting Egypt, I went to the temple of Philae. And when I went out to the outside of the temple, it really is kind of more like the back, even though it was moved from its original location. I went there and I was just like, this is exactly what it looked like. Like as far as the type of plants, and to be very clear, how the vegetation looks is very different from South Egypt versus North Egypt. There are a lot of plants, but just like the kinds of rocks and things like that, there are visible differences between the two locations. So I'm going to put that out there. But there was a real sense of like, no, even how the temple looked from the outside, like how I walked out, I'm like, no, this all makes sense. Like I walked out this backside area because I was trying to avoid people. And that location is very much, I'm like, this is where I decided to
say goodbye.
But I know as well that at that temple there was worship of both Horus, Osiris, and Isis there, as well as Hathor.
It makes sense since it's the whole family.
Yeah, whole family that's there. Even at the temple of Edfu, very known for the Osiris being, and Horus as well. But if way back at that time, 2100 BC, it would make sense for me to, if I was getting married to Osiris as an Isis priestess, that I would be at that location to do that. So it seems as though I had traveled, like I didn't stay in just one temple for my entire life. I was moved around from different temples for different reasons, it seemed. So yeah, that was my lifetime. It did ask, they ask in the hypnosis, like, what was the purpose, reasoning for that lifetime? And it says, really to be of service and to be selfless. Selfless and to be of service was what the whole lifetime was dedicated to.
And so, gentle listener, just in case y'all don't know, that is one of the hallmarks of a Virgo, is to be selfless and be of service. So I feel like you have been doing this for a long time.
Yes.
And also with the wine.
We were also kind of joking because we just looked up the connection with Isis and wine. I feel, I guess, like I've been...
She was like, so I've been a Psalm for like thousands of years.
So lifetimes, I've been a Psalm. Okay.
So we hope you have enjoyed this seasonette on Egyptology. We have certainly enjoyed sharing a little bit more of our great love for all things Egyptian with you. And we will see you in the next seasonette, which is going to be more current. So yeah, we are moving into December and we are calling it the metaphysical.
The metaphysical. So stay tuned on All the Woo.
A to Z.